In the past few years, many within the 2S LGBTQIA+ community have seen a startling trend of animosity towards trans and other gender diverse folks. Ashley Smith, Director of Advocacy at Rainbow Resource Center, joins us on U-Talk to discuss the challenges and fears the 2S LGBTQIA+ community faces, the construction of Place of Pride in Winnipeg, and the resources available through their services and programs. Let's get into it.
My name is Ashley Smith. I use he, him pronouns. I am the Director of Advocacy at Rainbow Resource Center. I oversee the communications and education departments. Let's just say I'm a little busy right now.
The big conversation right now, at least to start things off, I'd love to talk about Place of Pride and watching it grow and develop. And I feel it's so important learning how many youth who identify as queer or a member of the 2S LGBTQ+ community, like just 40% of homeless youth are generally within those circles, which I think is crazy because it's something around only 25% of people are somewhere within that community.
Mm-hmm. It's not just youth, actually. It's all ages are significantly represented in the homeless community or in the houseless community, and also new Canadian 2S LGBTQ+ new Canadians also experience housing issues as well because they're often housed with the ethnic people that they fled from in their home countries, and also older adults. Older adults often due to a lifetime of stigma and the increased likelihood of developing chronic illnesses and life-limiting illnesses, they're more likely to live alone and experience isolation in their housing. So every aspect of the queer community experiences housing situation. So Place of Pride is, yes, we just last May, we moved into our new location at 545 Broadway. And it is, right now it's a historical house. And beside it, we're developing Place of Pride. And it is a 21 unit multi-purpose building that will be Canada's first affordable housing for 2S LGBTQ+ older adults. And when I say it's a first for Canada, that is really something to be proud of here in Winnipeg. But all across this country, there are community centers like Rainbow Resource Center who are actively trying to break ground on exciting projects just like Place of Pride. And Rainbow itself started this project, or a version of this project, many, many years ago. And it has fallen apart or fallen on the wayside for a variety of reasons, but it's really exciting that not only have we broken ground, the floors are all up, the roof's on, the windows are in, and we're expecting people to be moving in next spring. So it's really exciting.
It goes beyond just being a place for people to live. It's going to be a community gathering place. I think there's something about not dance classes, but like evening dance sessions and stuff like that. It's just going to be a place where people can come together and celebrate who we are.
In the past, Rainbow has always offered a variety of programs and community groups, but at our old location, it kind of was like a little bit, it was a classic. The Scott Street location was classic in its own way, but it was never really a built-to-purpose kind of space. Mm-hmm. It was never really ours.
Tango. I wasn't quite sure what dancing. Yeah. I saw people doing it the other day, and I'm like, that is just so adorable.
Oh, that's fantastic. I haven't seen it yet, but it's really good that they're there and that we are able to take up that space and use it to its maximum ability right now.
Well, and I think especially in the current political sphere that we're in, being, to put it lightly, having people or having queer people be out in the open, being there proud of who they are, and people walking down the street be like, wow, look at this, what's going on here, to learn to conversation, I think is so important.
My new tagline is existence is resistance. Existence is resistance. Yeah, sorry, I almost got it mixed up there. But it's just like with the rise of anti-queer rhetoric and right-wing extremism rising to such levels that it's actually impacting provincial and federal policy. Right now, there is so much to be down about in our community. We're watching as the decades-long fight to win rights and the successes and accomplishments that we've made as a community are being eroded in the before. And the generation who fought for those rights is watching those rights being eroded, which must be devastating for them. It's so easy to cower, and it's so easy to go to the safety of your safe little home. But to resist that and to get out and exist and have fun, queer and trans joy is probably one of our strongest tools in this community to fight back against hate.
Well, I've seen it in my friends growing up in a conservative circle. All of us were closeted, and being able to come out and accept who we are. I've seen kind of new life come up in my friends as they've accepted who they are, embraced who they are, and if they've had to go back in the closet due to fear of legislation or hate out in the streets, that impact that would have on them, not just on like a physical level, but on an emotional level.
I'm not even going to think about actually having to go back into the closet. That is too much for me to even I just want to say though that you're absolutely right. Going back into the closet would be awful. Coming out of the closet is its own trauma. And we were working as a community globally, like the 2S LGBTQ plus community globally was working to make it a place where coming out really wasn't even required anymore. The older generation was like, no, seriously, you got to come out, you got to make it big, got to make your identity known. And the newer generations were like, well, I don't really need to do that if I don't have to. It's traumatizing. I don't want to do it. But now more than ever, we need people to come out, tell their stories, tell how hard it is, take up space in groups. And when they see things go wrong or when they see language being used that's harmful to our community, say, no, that isn't right. I'm queer, I'm trans, and or my sister is, or my brother is, or something, and take up the space with your identity.
Now's the time to stand up, to fight, because all it takes is one little step for that legislation to pass through, and then it is just a mudslide of things that are continuing because, hey, they got away with it before.
Right.
Let's see what we can do now. And each time you erode people's rights, it becomes a little bit easier to push that down.
That's right. So we have to remember, though, that we have fought for our rights and won. We're not fighting for our rights anymore. We have them. So now when organizations like Action for Canada or the 1 Million March for Kids or whichever one you want to call it this time, whenever they actually do something such as ban a book or they God forbid, commit some hate-motivated crime, we have precedent we are a protected class so that we can actually take these a step further. The problem is these groups are navigating the edge of the issue and they're just looking for a crack. They're trying to find something where they can get in, such as parental rights. And that's where we have to be most vigilant and watch these groups and see what they're doing and be ready, not react. Then we have to prepare systems to actually, hopefully sue them or something, whatever the case may be, whatever literally the case is. But there are organizations out there like EGAL who are doing this work right now, such as in Saskatchewan. They are working to counter that edict that was passed. God forbid it happens here. I really don't want it to happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the parental rights movement because, for people who may be not too involved in the political sphere, from the surface, it sounds innocuous from the top, but
it sounds great.
It's so insidious. So for our listeners, how about you just kind of break it down a little bit? Why are we so concerned about the rhetoric and the conversations from kind of the right here in Canada and in the United States talking about parental rights?
Sure. Well, there are many avenues I can take to talk about it. There's a lot of issues to cover. What's most alarming to me about the conversation about parental rights is how quickly families get divided over it. I just recently went to a family dinner and somebody asked me how my week was going. And I told parental rights obviously came up, and people who may not have had any opinion about trans rights before suddenly are very sure that they'd want to know what their kids were up to at school. And you know what? There are many ways for a parent to get involved with their children's education. They've long existed. The conversation about increasing parental rights is specifically about it's about outing trans kids at school, and while they say the teachers shouldn't have the responsibility of dealing with this, well, what you're doing with this increased parental rights is actually forcing teachers who may have developed relationships with kids who now feel safe to come out or identify differently at school, and now those teachers are put into a difficult situation where they may have to actually tell homophobic parents or transphobic parents that their kid is queer, starting a whole avalanche of disasters. I think what's also important to really understand is that the language being used in policy about parental rights is lifted directly out of the pages of the agenda of Action for Canada and similar groups. 2 short years ago, when the Freedom Convoy was honking its horns at the Ledge building, we would have scoffed at the notion of the Freedom Convoy impacting policy or shaping policy. And yet here we are 2 years later. They've found a hot button issue that this divides this community, and the conservatives are adopting and churning themselves into social conservatives because they see how great this is, how attractive it is as an issue. And we have to remember that this is the rhetoric of right-wing extremism. And is that the country that we want to live in? Is that the place we really want to go? Do we really want to go backwards? In Canada, we have some of the most advanced 2S LGBTQ plus rights in the world. And that is amazing. That is really something to be proud of. And so did the States, really. I mean, even though they were kind of difficult about it and it took a really long time, it was really genuinely a safe place to be a queer person compared to other places in the world. Well, this recent travel advisory to the United States demonstrates how successful the playbook, the right-wing extremism playbook that has been used in the States, that's how successful it can be. It can actually make a place that was once safe no longer safe. And that's where we're headed right now in Canada.
Oftentimes it felt like, that sort of thing will never happen here in Canada. Ooh. But it's just seep in. It's like a poison in here. And for a lot of people, I think attacking trans people is very easy because it's such a small percentage of the population of people who identify as trans. For a lot of people, they might have never met a trans person, or they might have never known they've met a trans person. So for them, it might be this very easy thing, like almost this mythical idea that's going on. It's like, what's going on? This sort of, my kids can just be swapped gender or their sex just on the fly.
One of my colleagues at work said today that transphobia is one of those things that can actually be openly talked about. Racism at work, you would immediately be reprimanded for it. Misogyny at work, you'd absolutely be reprimanded for it. But somehow transphobia,
it's so normalized.
It's
so
a
casual.
Normalized phobia that but like, we can't let that happen. Don't let that happen. And I mean, it has consequences. This kind of stigma on trans youth causes suicide ideation and suicide rates to climb. And it contributes to the chronic health of the older adults. It contributes to the homelessness in our community. It contributes to the addiction and the health issues. I mean, it's all connected. And we have to be vigilant because it's right now. It's happening right now.
And I think it's important for those who are listening that might be like who are trans people? What does it mean to be trans? It's okay to have questions sort of thing, but just be careful to not have your first reaction to be potentially fear, hatred, or disgust. sort of
Questions
thing.
are great.
Exactly.
Questions are better than facial expressions. They just open a book, and you better do it soon because they're trying very hard to get rid of all the books about it. But you can actually just even find, believe it or not, children's books about transgender people or gender diversity or whatever you want to look at. And it can be that simple to learn about. We have great books at the center if you want to come by. Honestly, asking questions is so much better than just making assumptions and assuming that you'll never have to deal with a transgender person, because if you actually believe that you've never been in contact with a transgender person, the likelihood is the transgender person didn't tell you they were trans because you didn't appear to be a safe person.
Taking that time, and I know it can be a lot of work to go through articles, to look at the scientific literature. I think this stuff is very interesting, and even for me, when going through watching like hour-long conversations or debate online, and then trying to read the articles and not just looking at the top of it, going through the whole thing can be exhausting.
It's actually traumatizing. I've got this I got this book at work, like a folder, and every once in a while I shove a new report in it that I'll read, and I call it the book of bad news because it's just like report after report after report about, and most of them aren't even recent enough to encapsulate the extremism that's happening. It's just the problems that already existed before extremism, which we need to get back to as a society because we were doing really great at addressing them, and then extremism came along and set us back.
It's one of the conversations I keep trying to have of just trying to normalize and get people comfortable. Like, as you mentioned, just exposure goes a long, long way in combating hate. If you get two people in a room and you just get them talking, don't start with politics right off the bat. Like, that's just
never a good idea. Yeah.
Like,
don't start with
don't go into
rights.
a room and be like, "Are you homophobic?" sort of thing. That's just asking for trouble. But if you start having those conversations, start off slow, and you get to know someone, you'd be like, "Huh," and then they find out maybe this person was queer or something afterwards. They're like, "Huh, you are not who I expected at all." I had this kind of preconception of what it means. Take an opportunity to learn, but I would recommend reach out to organizations to learn. Don't necessarily just go up to a random person on the street.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, it's good to go with a reliable source. Rainbow can help you find the information for what you're looking for, because right now misinformation and lies are all over the place, and it's actually the strongest weapon of extremism. If you've ever gone to Action for Canada's website, I don't think you have to follow along with what I'm saying, but if you go to it, it is very elaborate. They have lots of articles. They have lots of quote unquote research, lots of quote unquote reports. They have podcasts and YouTube channels, and lots of taglines, and it's flashy, and you can click and click and click and click and go deeper and deeper and deeper, but it's just taking you deeper into lies. So yes, information and reports are great, but really make sure you know where you're getting it from. And also Google who the doctors, like say you're reading a report on something, Google who the doctors that are researching this, because often these academics have a background that is transphobic, and actually they are the ones who are pushing the agenda. We're seeing it across Canada right now as well.
People using scientific jargon and the process to push the message. The whole vaccines cause autism movement, where the guy clearly had a profit-driven motivation to make his report. So it's about very carefully looking at those things. And I think, that's one of the challenges that we need to continue to build in our classrooms, in our schools. I think media literacy is something that should be continued to be fostered and nurtured.
And critical thinking as well, right? If you Google something and it quickly comes up with exactly what you're looking for, maybe take the time to go a little bit deeper, read a few more articles, because your algorithm is maybe steering you towards something that is echoing what you already thought.
Like social media algorithms, it is so easy to start going down a pipeline. Because I like to keep up to date with what's going on, looking at right-wing conversations and things. And then the algorithm's like, oh, this is what you're into, right? And now that's all I get for a period of time. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I'm actually fearful of that. I've been doing a lot of Googling about hate groups, and I'm just waiting for a ding-dong at my door, should we be alarmed?
Yeah, it's one of those things that social media and the internet is such a powerful tool, but that just means it's a powerful weapon as well.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I agree. I don't know where to go from there. But another thing about information and the answers that you can get is right now there are the thing about right-wing extremist groups are they're actually a very welcoming group, believe it or not. They have cookouts and potlucks, and they have big meetings, and they hug each other when they see each other. They have merchandise and messaging, and they sort of all speak the same language. It's like a big party. Most scary about it is they'll welcome people in from the fray. People who are kind of lingering outside. Do you want to come join us? Absolutely. Then they give them all the information, all the answers they'd ever need about an issue, and you can't trust that information.
What are some of the other challenges that we're currently facing right now in terms of the queer community? We're talking about parental rights and the banning of books that are going on. What are some other things that people should be diligent of?
Well, I would be definitely watchful for hate-motivated crimes like what happened in Lundar, where the rainbow crosswalk in the center of town had "Kill the Gays" written in German with a swastika beside it. That's not right. That is a crime. And when those crimes happen, often it feels like a victimless crime. It's a small town. How many gay people could there possibly be? Well, there's
surprise, there's a lot.
There are a lot, and they are impacted by it, and they hide because it's safer to do that. And that has, in my world, that has negative impacts on your health. But also you have to be vigilant. You have to call the cops. I know the relationship with the cops is tenuous at best, but you've got to be on them. They have hate crime units. You've got to call them, befriend them, if you will, and chase down the perpetrators of these crimes. That would be another one that's, and that's for all the police out there who are like, "Hi, it's me, Ashley. Recognize my voice." But because it's happening all over the place. That's not helping.
Look, during recent Pride back in June. Okay. Couldn't remember quite what month it was again. But in June, out in the Pembina Valley and the communities out there, how many flags and things. Pembina Valley Pride was always talking about hey, we're going to just keep putting up flags. People tearing them down, leaving messages. People were fearful. Kids were beat up in the playgrounds and places.
Don't even tell me that. I mean, honestly, it's that is my worst fear, is because adults may fight this out, and we may fight it in the courts, and we may fight it in the streets, but ultimately the kids are the most vulnerable. And the irony is that the extremists want save our kids, but yet this whole issue is only stigmatizing those kids. And bullies are bullies. They will see the weak ones or the ones that are getting the attention, and they'll take advantage of that. And I mean, the whole system was being worked out with GSAs, with teachers who were taking DEI trainings. We were so close to creating a space where queer kids could just be safe and be themselves. Because of extremism, it's all being thrown away.
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate what we're seeing. So we need to come together. We need to continue to fight so those rights are not taken away, and that we see this kind of change towards anger and bigotry, because it's not healthy for anyone. Because when we're looking at just in terms of right extreme groups, those people aren't happy. They're always riled up. They're always, and it's always escalating to keep these people in their fervor. You got to keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. And eventually, there's no one left.
I have so much to say. So first of all is for anybody out there who may be thinking about joining an extremist group, just remember this, that the leaders and influencers of those extremist groups, they'll never really commit a hate-motivated crime. They will never be taken down for this. What they're going to do, their modus operandi, is going to be to inspire you and invigorate you and make you so impassioned that you go out and commit that crime. And we don't want to see anybody hurt. Also, I want to say about that is that, again, just those extremist groups are so welcoming. And so us on the other side, we also have to be welcoming. We have to recognize that there are so many separate groups, because if you think that it's trans kids that they're going to stop at, you're kidding yourself. It's just going to be another group next. It's going to be New Canadians. It's going to be another group. Anyway, we all have to stand together. We have to recognize that it is us and them. And so there's strength in numbers. There's strength in the joy that we can generate when we're together. And there's strength in sharing correct information. Come to Rainbow if you need some.
How about we talk a little bit about Rainbow Resource Center and the work that you guys do here in Winnipeg, which is just so important. And I think, just reading up online and hearing what you're doing, I think is amazing. Walk us through some of your programming and what you do.
So Rainbow Resource Center is bookended by the our youth program. So I think it's like anywhere I can never remember exactly, but it's something like, I'm going to say 11 to 21, and the 55 plus crowd, the older adults. And then in between there, we do have free counseling with intakes for free short-term counseling. We also offer education such as diversity, equity, and inclusion training to your workplace, or such as healthcare is now a big customer of ours. And we also do GSA consultations. So Dean goes out to schools across the province to inspire teachers and organize GSA spaces for the kids, and also obviously speak with the kids themselves, which is so inspiring. Whenever you see a group of them, they're so happy. So then there's a whole variety of community programs. I think there's like 9 community programs that we offer for new Canadians, for trans femme, trans masc, non-binary, and a variety of others. We have Camp Aurora, which is Manitoba's only overnight camp for queer and ally youth, and a variety of fun parties all throughout the year, of course.
It's a great place for people who are queer to learn more and find people like them to kind of build a community. And it's an opportunity and a place for people who maybe have a queer child or a queer family member.
That's the ticket right there. So I would say that's the phone at the front is ringing constantly with parents who are like, I think my kid is trans or something, and I don't know what to do. And I think that's probably happening now a lot because this conversation is happening at dinner tables across the country. If you have questions or you want to prepare for the conversation, which is probably the better solution, give us a call. We can hook you up. We can sit down with you. We have workshops that you can attend. It's very easy to do.
You never know what you're going to learn by attending these sorts of things. You never know the people you're going to meet, the relationships you can build from these opportunities, going out, learning about different groups of people, and it's just going to broaden your horizons.
Right. I mean, if you or your kid are coming out and you don't know what to do, well, the first thing you do is you just love them. Love them, love yourself. Welcome to the community.
It's called unconditional love, right?
It is called unconditional love. Some people have the wrong reaction, but, keep it in the back of your mind. The first thing you do is just love that person because it's a scary time. They obviously felt safe enough to come out. Welcome them.
That's probably why we're seeing such high statistics in terms of queer individuals who are experiencing houselessness or homelessness, because maybe they don't have that safe space. They either run away or they're kicked out.
When we think about things like landlords kicking people out because they're trans, we maybe think of an older time, but it is happening all the time right now, even though there's policy or legislation to protect gender diversity. It's still happening.
The event that you're going up, a conference or something like that?
Yeah, I'm going to the Enchanté Network conference, or the national conference about combating hate. So, I'm going in with this information that I have, and it's a national conference. So the 2S LGBTQ plus leaders from across Canada are coming together to figure out what we can do if we speak with one voice. And I can't believe we're here, honestly. That's really what it is. So
yeah, it's every time I see the news, and it's felt that way for a couple of years now, where things just seem to keep like dripping and pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's like we already have so many crises going on in the world already. We don't need to add more to the fire.
So I last Pride, so on May 26th, I launched at the Manitoba Museum the If These Walls Could Talk, 50 Years of 2S LGBTQ plus activism in Winnipeg. I really started that project, though 2 years ago, really I got down to the nitty gritty of it in January. And as I was coming up with the copy, my theme was, just in case we had to fight for our rights again, let's inspire the kids just in case, just rhetoric or hypothetically speaking. Well, I mean, honestly, And then in March, I took over as director of advocacy, and it was almost like every day there was another sign that it was coming, and then it was here, and then it was in New Brunswick, and then it was, coming across Canada. It was the NHL one time, book banning's next. And honestly, it's so intense, and it feels like it could be anything next. I'm just praying that nobody gets hurt, and because we're kind of headed in that direction. Be safe out there, kids.
And watching just the States, because it's like much further along on this path than we are. Things are escalating there. Things are getting scary. Often we throw these pictures, idea of like across the world, there's these places where people are attacking queer people for. It's happening on our doorstep.
It's just a few hours south of here. There are many people that I work with and in our close circle that they can't drive through the States anymore because they are fearful of stopping to go to a washroom. I would be, I am a cis white male. I almost said hetero male. No, but I'm a cis white gay male. But I would be nervous if I was a person of color who was gender diverse, driving through the States right now. All it would take is one cop to stop you, and they don't agree with who you are, or God forbid you had to go to the hospital.
Yeah, you don't pass their vibe check.
You don't pass their vibe check, and that's where we're headed here in Canada. So, yikes.
Yeah, be vigilant, be active, and stand with each other, right? Go to protests, go to events. There was a recent one with the teachers union fighting against these parental rights legislation that are being like kind of forayed into our schools right now. Go walk with people, hold signs, especially if you aren't queer. Get out there, be an ally.
Exactly. Yeah, be an ally. An ally is a verb, so you actually have to, you can't just say you're an ally and that's fine. You actually have to go out on the street and stand with people, read the books, read the reports if you want. And talk to people, share your stories and experiences. Absolutely. Also, I just want to say that, if there's any youth in university or you're studying law or you're a next generation on the human rights journey, I want you to feel inspired and impassioned by what's happening right now, because we need a fresh generation to not just protect the rights we have, but to really enshrine them so that they are not eroded by special interest groups.
Exactly. Let's fight this off, and then when we get out on the other side, we're way further than we were before.
I mean, we can do better than America, I think. So hopefully we can do this.
Let's be a shining example for the world.
Again.
Well, Ashley, it has been an absolute pleasure, although difficult subject matter and very scary subject matter. I think it's incredibly important to have these conversations. So I thank you for coming on and talking with me about this. Where can people go to find out more about Rainbow Resource Center and those services and things available? Sure.
So, of course, rainbowresourcecenter.org is our website, and you can reach out to info@rainbowresourcecenter.org if you have questions about anything. The person who manages our front desk can point you in the right direction about any of our resources or information. If you want to reach out to me directly, I have no problem receiving your email. You can reach out to me at Ashley S, ASHLEYS, as in Smith, at rainbowresourcecenter.org.
Have any stories you'd like us to share, or communities we should highlight? Leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.